Warning the Warriors, we are all about truth, reality, facts. No matter how tough to hear, our goal is always education, prevention, intervention, critical analysis about human rights crimes in the United States and the landscape in America surrounding big tech and legislation to keep kids safe online. Rick Lane returns to the Warriors. It's been a while, but Rick has been here before. And I'm so excited because Rick is at the forefront of all that is happening in Washington, D.C., and he's a tech policy expert. And he'll share with us what we need to know about AI, artificial intelligence, and surrounding all else surrounding big tech. Rick Lane is a child safety expert, I want to say, advocate, strategic advisor, founder and CEO of IGGY Ventures. He advises and invests in companies, projects, and public policy and initiatives, and is at the forefront of really creating positive impact for all of us. I'm just going to throw this in, Rick, bear with me. Rick has a very extensive, everybody, it'll be in the body of the video, bio. We don't have time to cover all that, but it'll be in the bio. But before all of this, Rick he served about 15 years as the senior vice president of government affairs for 21st Century Fox. And it goes on and on and on, that bio. But you can follow Rick. Go to LinkedIn, not now, when we're done with this. Rick Lane, IGGY Ventures on LinkedIn. Welcome, Rick Lane, to the Warriors.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
You know, Rick, you've been on you're on my different radio shows, Lynn's Warriors. I think you were on my State of the Nation radio show. You're on our Warriors channel now. I mean, you're a warrior. Let's just get that out of the way. But I'm so happy to see you and really get the scoop about a lot happening in DC. Let's jump right in. But before we start, I want to ask you, Rick, give us a little nugget to get us going. Something about Rick Lane we don't know. I don't know. It could be about where you grew up, a hobby you have, any little thing. Let's humanize Rick Lane for a moment before we jump into the Washington, D.C. arena.
Oh, gosh. Probably people don't know I played football all the way through college, had a tryout with the New York Giants. But most recently, one of my teammates from high school, Eric Allen, was just elected to the NFL Hall of Fame. And so I have a video of him and I making a tackle in high school that I posted. So proud of that. But I love the game of football and I love playing it. And I learned most of my skill set in the lobbying front by how you play a football game: offense, defense, strategies, the team you build around you. People like yourself are always important players, and understanding what the other side's going to do, understanding their playbook as well, so that way you can counter. So I always give a lot of credit to my time on the football field to having that translate very well into the public policy arena.
Rick, I love that. I don't think I knew that, but you know what? I love that for kids to hear that story. Like that they could adapt that kind of thing as they grow up and become leaders in our society. I have to ask you, since you said football, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did. I did.
Thoughts? Anything you want to share?
No, it was just I was hoping for a closer game. I didn't really care who won. I'm a Commanders fan here in DC, but and the Eagles are the enemy, and a little kind of too much Kansas City for me lately around television and all the press that they get. But I wanted a close game. It was fun watching it on Fox. My first Super Bowl that I went to was in New Orleans in 2002.
Oh,
It
wow.
was right after 9/11 and the tributes, and having to go to New Orleans for a Super Bowl game was amazing. And a little unknown fact, it was the first all digital broadcast of a Super Bowl, which means that we had no analog backup. So I was in the box with Rupert and some of our engineers, and we had a high definition television that was the size of a big old brick. I can't even do it on the screen because it was so big and thick. And we were watching it, and it was the first all digital broadcast football game. And now you look at today or where we are, it's amazing.
All I know, Rick, I will share that I, of course, as the mother, prepared for the grown children the Super Bowl party. And I usually I usually keep it on every year in the background. I don't watch it. I watch the halftime show. That's where I'm at, you know. And but I did actually watch it with the kids this year. And I said to my son, wow, because I noticed like these camera angles from the sky from here, they're coming at me. Of course, the kids have TV sets as big as a movie theater, you
Yes.
know, but I have
Exactly.
not, I'm telling you, they were coming at us. And my son's like, oh, that's been going on for a while, mom. I'm like, "Well, I never actually watched the show part of it. I was always,
Yeah.
but unbelievable. Okay, now we've got to jump in. Um,
Absolutely.
Now, I want our warriors out there to understand the meaning of AI and AGI. So let's start there. A very elementary explanation, Rick Lane. What is AI and AGI?
So artificial intelligence has been around forever. I mean, for many, many years. It's the ability of making large computations of information and making it into simple form. What has happened though over the past several years that has been incredibly dramatic is that the power of computing, the ability to and massive storage of taking all the data and being able to combine it. But the secret sauce now, when you're hearing like with deep seek and all the other different big what they call AI data sets, is that they're also engaging in human interaction and how humans interact. And which is why one of the pieces of legislation I worked on was the TikTok divestiture bill, because as a national security threat, because it wasn't just about the data and the use of the data, my first name, last name, where I live, that's out there. Everyone collects it. That's pretty much done at this point. But it's a human interaction. It's who are my friends? What are my connections? What do I listen to? What music do I like? What foods do I eat? And how can they combine that in such a way that they can customize information that they're sending me directly at a massive scale? So it's not just the massive scale that they're sending everything to everyone, like broadcast television in the Super Bowl, right? Think of that. It's like one to many. This is everybody gets an individual message. And that power, that interaction, the ability to make it feel almost human is what is scaring people like myself who have been involved with tech for a long time, because it's hard to differentiate between a bot and a real person. And we always say, someone said that the other day, real person, an actual human. I don't know why we say real humans, because bots aren't humans at all.
Exactly.
And also the ability to manipulate and capture video of people, images, name, image, and likeness, and their voices. So right now, you may be chatting with a bot and you wouldn't know it. Like, how do you different? That's how real it is. And so that ability to target information, especially towards kids, and who are their trusted friends. Is it a real friend? Is it a bot? Are they manipulating them? It goes so deep that unless parents are aware of what's happening and the speed at which it is happening, they're just going to be overwhelmed.
Also, Rick, I'm sure you're aware there was that story of the teen boy who was in the relationship with the bot. Do you
Yes.
know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And then like the bot, he was some kind of a great son and a good student, and he kind of just was losing weight and everything was going crazy. And the mother actually did everything right. She was bringing him to a doctor, this and that, and then she decided to look through his phone, and that's where she found this relationship, which turned out to be a bot who was now directing him to do very dangerous things. We're a family programs. I'll just leave it at that. But I thought and that was just within the last couple of months. That was a very scary story. Here's the number one question, Rick, I get about all of this. When I mention AI and they get a
Hmm.
glazed look, everybody gets a glazed look over their face.
Hmm.
They're like, why? We don't understand. Why does anybody want this? What is your answer to that?
There's so much potential good out of this ability to manipulate and analyze data, cancer research, other types of problems that society has, to be able to look at all the different aspects, weather, predicting the weather. I mean, there's a whole host of different great things that generative AI is going to accomplish, like all technologies, right? But there are no guardrails, and that's the problem. We are not to overstate it, but maybe it is a little bit, but it's close to. It's like everybody would be able to build a nuclear bomb, right? Nuclear energy, again, you can be for it or against it, but it's had some positive impacts. But no one can build a nuclear power plant in their house. It'd be very difficult to do. You don't have the chemicals, you don't have the uranium, you don't have the different things that you need. But anybody can build a bot. Anybody can build a deep fake and use it for good or for bad and for evil. And that's the scary part, because there's no guardrails. There's nothing in place to ensure that the data sets that are being ingested don't include CSAM, for example, because they all do. Or that they're guardrails when I ask it a question. This is what's so amazing about it. I was at a briefing last week up on Capitol Hill by the New Jersey State Police, who investigate sex offenders and sex trafficking and online sex trafficking. And they were showing us how realistic the bots they use to capture these people. And it's real time. And
Yeah.
for that, so that can be good, right? You can find bad people without putting a child at risk to try to capture a pedophile.
Yeah.
You can actually be an officer that looks like a 12-year-old girl. And they were showing how easy it is to do that. On the other hand, it's easy for a pedophile to act as a 12-year-old girl, or somebody who wants to do sextortion and act like a 15-year-old girl and seem perfect. They have all the information about all their friends, and all of a sudden the boy is, or the girl is doing something on video that they should not be doing, and then they get sextorted. Even worse now is that they're able to make like you already did it. So they could have your video that they're taking off of Instagram or wherever else it happens to be of your voice, and create videos of you engaged in CSAM as a child and say, we're going to release this. And it's so hard to distinguish if it's real or not, that it's going to create a lot of harm.
Yeah, and let's clarify. CSAM, CSAM, everyone means child sexual abuse material, much more descriptive, generally media, and a lot of people still use, child porn, kiddie porn. No, CSAM, child sexual abuse material. That is what we're
Mhm.
talking about. Rick, did you see the story today with the different, it's hard for me to say celebrities because I really think we don't have any celebrities today. I'll just leave it at that. That's for another program. With the t-shirts that was artificially created. It's like
Yes,
David
about
Schwimmer with the Kanye West, and now
mhm.
they're like, that's not us. I mean, they looks just like them wearing these t-shirts. And I'm going to leave
Yeah, it
leave
was
it
the
up to
middle
everybody
finger.
to do a little research on this one, the story that. But things like that are very deceptive and dangerous. And I bet you anything, most of society will look at that and just kind of, gloss over it and just think it's real kind of thing. They're not
Yeah,
paying attention. And I'm not judging people. No, actually, Rick, I think I am judging a little bit because I think in 2025, like we
mhm.
really have to go hard on this. We really have to. We're not trying to scare people. We're bringing you reality, what is happening. And we have to talk about these things open and honestly. And also with our kids because they're seeing things on their devices anyway. So let us be the ones that lead with information and fill you in. Now, let's get back to Washington. What right now, picture the tech expert. I'm making you the AI expert. Well, wait a minute. Let me back up. I have to ask you this. Answer any way you see fit or don't even answer me.
Sure.
What did you think of the inauguration when I saw members of big tech, CEO? I saw them all just sitting there. I for a minute just kind of couldn't say anything as I watched it on the television. I thought that could be good or could be bad. Do you have any thoughts on any of that or no?
A lot of unknowns on how this administration is going to handle big tech. JD Vance, the vice president, has been very outspoken in his criticism of big tech when he was a senator, and the concerns and child safety concerns. The Trump administration, as you know, was very helpful in the FOSTA SESTA legislation, right? We
Yes.
would never have gotten that through a different administration to protect children who are being sold on Backpage and other websites. And so the administration has been in the past has been great on the child safety side. what the impact of some of the bills that we've worked on, like the Kids Online Safety Act or the ability to reform Section 230, which is really the core of protections that we need to address going forward. I don't know. I don't know what that impact's going to be. It's hard to game this out. I mean, we had incredible votes on the Kids Online Safety Act, KOSA, through the Senate. We would have crushed it in the House, and we were blocked and never got it onto the House floor at the end. So it's hard to predict. But looking at the past, the Trump administration was very helpful on the child safety side around tech.
I'm going to stick to positives and just say, what is this administration? Week 3 or 4? I can't keep track. It seems like
Year one.
no, but I mean they just got there. But it's
I
kind of like
know.
a lot's happening every day. I can't.
No.
But I feel like not a good answer, but like observation maybe. But they're going to get there. They've had a few other priorities. They had to get to right away. Kids Online Safety Act, which we have rallied. I guess it's been almost 4 years with that, Rick. I have a feeling this year it's going to happen. I have a good feeling.
I hope so. I hope it's not a watered down version though. My concern is they keep the title, but the substance is watered down, because the key component to every child safety bill and to reforming Section 230 and what tech is fighting against in every piece of legislation is the duty of care. It's 3 words that are huge for us to protect children, to make sure that these sites and these apps have in place a duty of care to ensure that they are protecting children from harm. It's their conduct, not the content per se, because that's really hard to get legislation that impacts content, except for CSAM, which is already illegal content. But other type of content is what they like to put as awful but lawful content. And so we just have to push and make sure that any bill that goes through has a knowledge standard that isn't too high, that no one would ever be able to meet, and it has a duty of care provision that makes sure that the responsibility of the conduct of these companies, where they can be held accountable.
Well, I'm going to count on you, Rick Lane, to get in there and explain that to every member of Congress, our vice president, and our president, because if they could just understand those 3 little words, I'm very serious about that, like duty of care, because we've already seen it changed, amended, whatever it's called, watered down a little bit already. And that brings me to 2 points. The first one is TikTok. I want you to explain a little bit about TikTok. Here's my concern. Lots of people want to buy it. It's so I hear. Okay. But my concern is this whole thing was over a national security threat, as opposed to, a threat to our children, a national security threat. I'm very concerned if some American company or individual buys it, that they will not put in place, for lack of better words, duty of care, looking at the children part of it. What can you share with us? Have you heard anything? Because I'm very concerned everybody will want to buy. There are a lot of people out there to make money, right? Because it's one of the top 3 sites, I think, for teens. That's what we hear, along with YouTube and Snap and TikTok. But there's no addressing for children that I know about in this. What are you hearing, thinking? Tell us about this.
Absolutely. So the TikTok divestiture bill was a national security bill that didn't address the underlying issues that you and I work on every day, which is child safety, because that's a macro. Because one of the things that was always pushed back on us with the legislation is, well, this doesn't address the issues around children. This doesn't impact privacy protections and all. And I would be like, absolutely correct, because those are other broader pieces that we need to have in place to address the broader social media landscape from a public policy standpoint. But the national security threat of TikTok is that the control of the algorithm, is in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government. What that means is that they're able to weaponize their algorithms to undermine US geopolitical interests and our democracy. So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that they're able to do is they have 170 million users and US users. And so they're able to know where people are, geolocation, their interests, what makes them tick in a sense, hence TikTok, and be able to use that in such a divisive way against the US at a critical junction. As I mentioned, one of the most powerful things happening with AI, and that's what they're doing, right? TikTok is a massive collection of not just data, they can buy all the data, but that little fine algorithm human interaction that they can't buy because that is like, proprietary information for all these other companies, right?
Mhm.
How people are interacting. That's what makes Instagram powerful. That's what makes Google powerful, is the human interaction. That's what makes Chat GDP powerful, is the human interaction. And when you have a foreign adversary who's able to control that and create videos like the one you just mentioned with all these celebrities, they could make videos targeted towards 170 million people that is targeted and tailored to them, telling them something. And when they are able to weaponize that in a way that can be used to create chaos, that is what the national security threat is. The child safety stuff is very important, but that's across the board. And I'll just give you an example of that. You think about, with 170 million users, what is 1% of 170 million? It's 1.7. So think about this. All they have to do is get 1.1% of their users to not trust this government, to not trust what we're doing, to go protest in the street, like we saw when the TikTok legislation was going through, and they were calling their members of Congress, and young people were saying they're going to kill themselves or kill members of Congress if the TikTok ban went through, when they knew it wasn't a TikTok ban, it was a divestiture bill. So that manipulation and misinformation in the hands of a foreign adversary is huge. And that's what the TikTok legislation is about. On the child safety side, we have these broader bills like the Defiance Act around AI, the No Fakes Act, and the Take It Down Act that deals specifically with deep fakes. That is great to have, but but the problem is we're not going to reach into China, right? We're not going to be able to stop
Right.
them, and they have a loaded gun in the sense that they're pointing at the heads of 170 Americans that they can turn on at any time to create chaos. It's insane that what President Trump did to give them and his executive order, which I think is unconstitutional in my personal view, but the fact that we have not already had this sold, and we know that the Chinese government is dragging their feet on this and boxing the president in because the president said, I'm going to save TikTok. I am very concerned they're going to make a horrible deal.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And it won't address any of the issues that we have.
I just have one thing to say, Rick. I'm agreeing with you about
Mhm.
this. We hope and we pray not, but I'm agreeing. How did it even get to this point? That's what I want to know. I thought we had, all kinds of security and this and that and the other thing. How did we ever let it get this far? That's the kind of thing I never
Um,
understand. I don't, and it's even to make it really simple for the public, for the warriors, like, China. It shuts down at night. Kids can't, just to go in that direction about kids right now, they can't be using TikTok at night. They're allowed 40 minutes a day. The content is more educational or about, about their country, their history, math and science. And like we're letting our kids, our vulnerable kids, look at who knows what. That's the part I don't get right there. How could we allow this to even happen?
because we're a capitalistic country. Um,
Always about the money, Rick. It's always
it's always about the money. I
that's the
mean,
bottom
it's
line.
about
It really That's always but
we have
over
billion dollar
over over the
investors.
dignity of our children and all people. And all people. It's really quite disturbing. All right,
I
so
agree.
we're gonna hope that's gonna change. Now I know I want to make sure I cover a couple of things. I want to go back to section 230 of the Communications Decency Act because
Mhm.
that little thing that I just posted the other day is like from the time of the Spice Girls and the Macarena. Okay. I was trying to make like, musical analogies. Oh, we got to lighten it up a little. We
1996.
got to lighten it up a little bit, Rick, because people don't understand. But they're like,
1996.
no, they're like, oh, Macarena. Oh, I remember. Oh, so I'm like, yeah, now this is when this came about. So it's old already, everybody. Right. This is my analogy. Spice Girls too. And I don't understand this. Explain for our warriors what this is, this Section 230 Communications Decency Act,
Mhm.
and why we have not amended it on a yearly or every couple of years, why we're not sunsetting it, because a lot has happened since 1996.
Yes, a lot has happened. Just the background of the CDA 230 Communications Decency Act, that was part of the 1996 Telecom Act. Um, Basically, what happened was this is the era of, want to make people feel old, AOL. When AOL was
Excuse me, I
dominant.
still have an AOL email account. I have several, but it's going to swing back around, Rick. I know it. It's going to
Someday,
swing.
someday.
It's going to be worth money someday. It's going to swing back around.
Before you got mail, right? So so that's how far back this goes. And what was happening was there were a couple court cases that were going through the court system. One basically was treating, and this is bulletin boards. This was CompuServe and Prodigy, if the other names that you may have a brain cell that will pop like, oh my gosh, I remember those names. I don't know what they were doing, but I remember the names.
Right.
But those two companies were treated differently under two different court decisions. One was basically had a moderator, and they were moderating the content, and they were sued by somebody who was said that they were slandered. And the court said because they are moderating, they have knowledge and are publishers and therefore could be held liable. The other court case that was going through at the same time basically said they weren't monitoring, but they had some harmful, again, slanderous content on there. And the court said, you basically are like a newspaper stand, because we had newspaper stands back then. And so you can't be held liable because the newspaper behind you, the Washington Post and the New York Times, has libelous materials and you're selling it, right? You have no knowledge. You're not the publisher. So Ron Wyden and Chris Cox, who were members of the House at that time, came up with language that basically did a couple of things that are, and one's more problematic than the other. One was saying that if you are moderating the content, we want to encourage that, which is a good part of 230. We want you to moderate. We want you to look at what people are posting so you can take it down, or if there's harmful content, you have the ability to do so. But the other part of the law says if you do nothing, you can't be held accountable. So there's no incentive to do anything. And that was a part that has become more problematic, in that you have companies doing nothing, and then when it's brought to their attention, they're able to hide behind 230. Or even if they do a little moderation, they're not doing enough. Again, they can't be held accountable for other users' content, the uploading of their users. And so since 96, we had a couple bad court decisions that expanded what that meant and basically created a shield. The legislation also says that it does not cover federal criminal penalties or criminal laws, but what is given exceptions to is state laws and civil action, state and local laws and civil action. So there's a federal preemption. So if a state attorney general wants to go after Meta, they are blocked by Section 230 because they would be using state law. Only federal criminal law is allowed to go after them, not even civil. Civil is completely exempted out of Section 230. So you've had this creation of a legal regime that allows these platforms to get away with everything that they want. All the harm, their conduct, their design decisions, everything that they've done that has created harm is now they can't be held accountable because a user misuses that. But the good news is we've had a couple of interesting Supreme Court cases that is going to, I think, change a lot of things. And one of and those cases basically have said that algorithms are the speech of the companies. So Google's
Oh,
algorithms are their speech. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, that's horrible. The algorithms are their speech and they have First Amendment protections of their speech, and therefore the algorithms can create harm. I saw that as completely different. I'm like, well, if the algorithms and what they're doing through AI is their speech, then that is outside the scope of Section 230 because 230 only protects against other people's speech on their site, but not their speech.
oh,
And so those cases, I think, are going to be very beneficial to us
sounds
going
promising.
forward
Mm,
because they can't hide behind 230 because their speech is not protected under 230. So that would allow for discovery. That would allow for what's going on behind the curtain, and I think that will open a lot of doors from a litigation standpoint for us. The other thing that I think is really interesting by that decision of the data sets and their algorithms and the transferring of information is that I don't know if you remember, Lynn, the Reddit case that we lost because of 230.
mhm.
There's a parent whose son had CSAM on Reddit. They sent hundreds of emails to Reddit saying, "This is my child.
Right.
Please take it down. Do something." They were ignored. They were even told it's not a violation of their terms of service. They sued Reddit, and a three-panel judges basically said that Reddit was protected by 230 because they had volunteer moderators and they don't control the moderators, and it's other users, so user content, not their content that they created. Big loss for us, and I think again that's why we need to fix 230. But here's the thing that I found interesting with that. I was looking at it, so they admitted in this case, Reddit, that they knew that they had CSAM on their site. They admitted, yeah, we don't know where all of it is, but we know it's on there, and we're hoping that our volunteer moderators will get rid of it, but we know it's on there. Well, right before their IPO, their initial public offering, they basically touted the fact that they have all this licensing agreements with Microsoft and Google and others to license their data for AI training, right? The data sets for training. That's how you do it. Training data sets. And it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars for Reddit as a revenue stream. So my legal theory is that if they are transmitting all the data off of their site, and that data and that information includes CSAM,
Yeah.
they are now violating child pornography laws because there is no exception. They can't say they know it's on their site.
Right.
I can't say, oh, I know it's on my computer and I'm transmitting it, but I may not know every single video that's on mine. And if you look at the laws around child pornography at the state and federal level, they hit every criteria of violating the state child pornography laws. And I'm waiting for state AGs to bring these cases because they can't hide behind 230 because it's not
Mm,
other people's user. It's they are transmitting it. They are the transmitters of child pornography. Their customers are getting access to that data. They know it's on their site because they've admitted it in court. And I think there's a real good case to be brought by state AGs to go after these companies criminally. And I think what it will do is ensure that as they're looking at data and what they're transmitting, that they will be more aggressive in ensuring that the CSAM is not part of that data. And I think that will benefit children.
interesting. It just sounds like, I'll bottom line it, like sex trafficking to me, sending all this stuff over the internet, as you pointed out, pornography and all that. All I know is, Rick, there is, as you know, there's tremendous amount of monies behind all of this big tech. Because people will ask me again, why is this happening? They're always asking why everything's happening. Uh, Tremendous amount of monies. I will share with you, I was one time, I was on Capitol Hill and I caught a senator in a hallway, grabbed them to talk to them.
Mhm.
And this very aggressive man, I kid you not, Rick, came up, really elbowed me right out of the way. I almost fell out of my high heels. I'm not kidding. And no, but I was like taken aback because people usually don't act that rude where they like
No.
elbow you and a man to a woman. I was so like astounded, like
Hmm.
I just kind of went away after I said, well, goodbye, thank you for your time, right? Just interrupted me, this goon. I later found out, I will not name the names, it was a big tech lobbyist that just literally didn't know me. I don't know them, elbowed me and I almost fell over. I kid you not. So they are aggressive. They have money. They're very well paid, they're lobbyists, but this has to
Hmm.
just end. Enough is enough now, right? Like we're on to them now. We're on to everybody. We're educating the public about all of this. Rick, I want you to talk about, I could talk to you forever. Tell us what you're doing right now. You have a very exciting venture, I'm going to call it, surrounding AI. Please fill us in.
Yes. So I announced the launch yesterday of the Alliance for a Safe Online Future, and what the Alliance does is really is it's a lot. The idea came from the Friday 2:30 calls that we're on, where we have amazing speakers
Mhm.
talking about policy issues, what's happening out there at the state level, at the federal level, but then it would just sort of die. We get these great emails after of like the summary of those calls, and then it would die. And there were so many great
I'm glad you
organizations.
said that. I don't mean to interrupt you, Rick, because I'm like, it's great. It's good. We've got a body of people. We got a great follow up, and then we're on to the next thing.
Yes.
And so when I heard you were doing this, I'm like, sign me up right away because it's
Yeah.
about follow up.
Yeah, the goal of the alliance is not to have more meetings. There's enough meetings we're all involved
Mhm,
in and conference calls. It is really to help have a central, use an old fashioned term, information portal from back in the day,
mhm.
of how to connect with people. Like, if we have letters that we want signed, you can go to the Alliance website. One of the things I hope to do, with your permission, is put your podcasts that you're doing on the website so people can find them, because there's a lot
Thank
of
you.
other.
Go ahead. I give you permission verbally, in
I,
writing. Do
yep,
it.
I have a
Do
visual
it.
now.
Do it.
But to put those up, because there's a lot of good podcasts for that are out there that are like, where do I go to find these? So it really is a central repository of information
Good.
about legislation that's important, um, talking points that are already in the public domain, and trying to create, and then having each of those entities that are part of the alliance have a direct link off of our site to them, so they know where to find. If I hear great stuff about this organization, where do I go to find it? I can go to the alliance website, and if they're members, you can click and get right to them. This isn't to take away from any of the great work that all these groups are doing. It's to better coordinate and enhance what they're doing through information sharing, and to have one place where we could go. As I said, those 2:30 calls that we have that Nkosi puts on are outstanding. And it just said, for me, it was like, well, how do we keep this going? And why not create this alliance and get all the entities already on these calls to start putting information in, so that way we can find it. We'll build better search engines for it to find, all the information. It's a organic website. So anybody who's a member of the alliance, if you have like, oh, it would be better if we did this or better for that. Yes. I wanted to make it organic. It's going to be growing and getting more robust. And so it's just a way for those of us who are in the trenches to be able to see what other people who are in other trenches, what they're doing, and maybe we can better coordinate. And that's the idea behind the alliance.
Well, I mean, to sign me up. I love it. Whatever you need from me. Also, our Warriors hashtag is community creates change. So as we advocate and work in Washington for all of this, or our state capitals, whatever, it's also very important on the community side to get the public involved. And Rick, they need easy lifting. They need
Yes,
like a one central place where, oh, like for instance, and I know you were on it recently. I love Nikki Riesberg. I just
yes,
interviewed her yesterday. Scrolling to Death podcast. Love her. Young mom, she's on top of things. Um, I want the public also to go to hear you and me talking on the Warriors, to hear Nikki talking and some others, to know there are different books out, survivors have put, or it is a wonderful idea and something I I'm just really so glad you're doing this, Rick, because I really think with this issue, tech, trafficking, which I really call slavery, enslavement of people, um, we cannot work. I'll use a term they use in media all the time. We can't really work in silos,
That's
right?
correct.
And I know when I started this, Rick, was only about 5.5 years ago. I really thought everybody would automatically come together. Like what you know, I don't know. What I know, you don't. I did, Rick. I thought like, well, who wouldn't be for like doing this bipartisan? Come. And then I went to Washington, and then everybody has good ideas, and I understand this is not judging anybody. Everybody's busy and overwhelmed. I get it, right? We live in a very turbulent environment, and we're trying to pay bills and take care of kids. It's all going on, but we must come together in 2025. I'm so like honored you're doing this, and to be a part of it, because this is the only way we will be able to intervene, prevent, educate. I'm even beyond, Rick, raising awareness. I'm like, enough of that. We all know like things are not going right. Certain things, like we need solutions, or we need
Yeah.
the education component. And people don't want to be researching like you and me research or work on things. They want to just go somewhere and read something. So
That's my
you
view.
know, yeah, I
It's
mean, they want simple, simple, simple. They don't have time, but they may have 5 minutes, which is what I preach every day, to read one piece of something or to share an X tweet, everybody, but I'm supposed to say X, I think now, or share, Facebook, or go to your wonderful LinkedIn and share. You had something really good on there today that I saw on your LinkedIn. And I want everybody to go to Rick Lane, IGGY Ventures, and look at that. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is because I want you to go there and I want you to follow Rick. Uh, Rick, so much else is happening. Finish us up with some final thoughts and what you want parents and caregivers to know right now. I don't want anybody to be scared. We're all in this together. We are here to work and help others and lift the load, for them, especially the parents. But let's hear from, your final words.
I think the reason the Kids Online Safety Act made it as far as it did in such a bipartisan way is because of parents and individuals who reached out to members' offices. The organizations are great at organizing, and that's what they do. But it's the individual parents and caregivers who calling their members of Congress and saying they want this legislation enacted overwhelms the money that is put in by the other side.
Mhm.
Money doesn't always win. The example I use is if it was all about money to get elected, we would have President Bloomberg because he spent a ton of money and lost, right, of his own money. It really is when members are raising money for campaigns, it's to get to voters to vote for them. So it is more important to be a voter in that state or in that congressional district, voicing strongly what your preferences are to build that they will suffer at the polls if they don't try and move legislation to protect kids. I don't care how much money they have. If the parents and the caregivers and the young people stand up and say, we're just not going to take it anymore and we're going to fight for this legislation, we will win. And we are a democracy. And people too often think, well, I didn't write a big check to the congressman. Go to their town halls. Those are free. Go when they're campaigning and meet and talk to them. Set up meetings in the congressional district so you don't even have to come to Washington when the members go back home. And they do a lot. They're back home a lot. And try to get into the point where they're not listening to you. Protest in front of their congressional offices at the district level. Invite the media to be there as you're protesting because a member of Congress is ignoring your calls to protect our kids. So it's really up to us. And that's why this alliance is a way for parents and others to have information from great organizations that are credible and have been doing this for a long time. And so my big message to everyone is we live in this amazing country that is a democracy. Don't give up on it and utilize those tools at the voting booth and with members to make sure that they pay attention to what we care about, which is our children.
Rick, are you running for office? That was like, uh, what,
No, I've run campaigns. I can tell you.
no,
That's why I
that
have
was
so much
so, that
respect
was
for
so
members of
nice.
Congress. That's
That
why
was
I
so
have so much
nice.
respect for people who
You know what
run.
I want to say, before I let you go, do we have a social media office in the White House? I don't think we do. No, I don't think there's a specific office that's social media office. I'm
Well,
nominating
what
you.
do you mean? You mean on policy or just like the
Like an
tweet? I
No,
think
I don't want. I don't
Trump
want to
has his
tweet. I don't
own.
want to. I don't want a tweet office. That's. I don't want. I want like a real like social media office that deals with all of this. Like what? Really? I think that's a new position. I think I'm nominating you for that. Like that deal. No, that is about. No, it's not about tweets and all that. It's about like it can be everything from policy to this to that, uh, kind of thing. I don't think we have anything like
Well,
that.
we kind of do at
What is
NTIA.
it?
It's the National Telecommunications Information Agency, NTIA, within the Department of Commerce. No one's ever heard of it. It's probably the most important agency or
We
part
got
of
to know
the.
more. Well, we got to know more about that one. That's for the next
Yeah,
program.
and
But
that's called NTIA.
NTIA, but we like people will understand social media office, like that
Yeah,
kind of whatever. Well, Rick Lane, you've been terrific. Thank you for joining us here today on the Warriors. Everybody can follow you on LinkedIn, Rick Lane. I'm gonna have all of your information and more of your bio in the body of this video. I thank you, Rick. I am so just honored to know you and the work you're doing, and I hope to see you. I'll be in Washington starting next month a lot, so I hope to see you in person. And
absolutely.
the coalition, I'll be promoting and advertising and everything along the way for our warriors. Thank you so much for jumping on today, and thank you for educating and sharing your voice and your expertise. You really are a warrior. Thanks, Rick.
Well, thank you for everything you're doing. We can't do this without people like you.
Thanks, Rick. We'll talk again soon.
Absolutely.